Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Edge of the Earth podcast. Welcome back. I'm your host, Jeff Jarman, from The Jeff Jarman Show on YouTube, and you can also find us at www.jeffjarman.tk. All right, and on today's podcast, I have a good friend, Schyler Silvey. You can find him on Facebook as well. He's got some upcoming projects he's working on, and today we're going to discuss an interesting theory that he has, that there is no such thing as a Christian. Now, I don't know if this is semantics or what it is, but Schyler, I'm going to let you lay out your argument here now, and thank you again for being on the show.
Well, technically everything's semantics, so, I mean, whatever. I mean, if you go to a courtroom and a guy says, I object semantics, it wouldn't really work as an argument, but...
Yeah, I see.
Just being humorous. But yeah, the entire argument is based on the definitions of certain words. And a lot of people have, including myself at one point, have had different viewpoints on the definition of what a Christian actually is. The belief in Christianity, I should say. You know, like myself, I thought that it was just believing in the teachings of the Bible, God, and Jesus, and all that stuff, and it was, you know, a big, broad spectrum.
Right.
And actually, whenever I got in a debate with somebody, they proved me wrong. And the definition actually is, and I'm going to pull up a couple different sources here, but the Merriam-Webster, which is one of the ones that are a lot of people quote from, the simple definition of a Christian, as it states, is a person who believes in the teachings of Jesus Christ. And then it goes into the full definitions, which is one who professes belief in the teachings of Jesus Christ, and it, in a way, it just kind of repeats this in different ways.
Okay.
And then you have the Oxford Dictionary, which is one of my favorites. It says the religion based on the person and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, or its beliefs and practices. I mean, this is a definition that I don't think the majority of Christians would disagree with, and by that definition, I mean you don't even have to believe in anything else. As far as the Bible is concerned, you don't have to believe in the Old Testament. You don't even have to believe in God. You can just believe in Jesus and go all freaking like Buddhist about it.
Right, because Christian was derived from the core word Christ, which the Jesus character was the Christ, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, this explains also why so many Christians are so quick to ignore the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Because in a way, it does kind of counteract itself. And I think that if you took away the Old Testament, that the Christian arguments would be a little bit less crazy, and creationism would be a nice non-existent thing. But anyway, and then you have, then you go, okay, well, what's belief? So it does quote belief a lot in those definitions. So in order to go into my argument, you also have to look at the definition of belief, and I'm just going to go with Merriam-Webster here again, and it says a feeling of multiple definitions here, a feeling of being sure that someone or something exists, or that something is true, or a feeling that something is good, right, or valuable. And then the third one they have listed here is a feeling of trust in the worth or ability of someone. And they have other definitions on here, and they're all basically saying the same thing in different ways.
Yeah.
So, okay, so my argument is very simple. Based on everything I just quoted, based on those definitions, and which are found everywhere on the internet, these are agreed upon definitions. Okay, Christianity, Christians, as it stands today, don't exist.
Okay, and a lot of people are going to be shocked when you say something like that. So tell us why you reached this conclusion.
The reason why is because a few people don't know. or at least should say not enough people know, is that your Bible, the Bibles that are often, by the way, changed every freaking time they get the opportunity, was actually determined by the emperor. I mean, well, I think it was an emperor, but Constantine at the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah.
When they determined what was canon and not canon to the Bible. Now, just so other people know, this isn't some conspiracy theory. This is established fact, historical fact.
Yes, it is.
So, the fact of the matter is okay. So you say, all right. So what about? So how does that pertain to those definitions? And how that pertains is most people, when they think the teachings of Jesus and Jesus, they think the New Testament. They don't realize that there's other things talking about Jesus that have been around some longer than the stuff that you're reading in the New Testament.
Yeah.
That we consider non-canon. What makes these non-canon? Exactly. Well, that would be just the opinions of a group of people during, again, the Council of Nicaea. So technically speaking, to be really honest, this isn't determined by a god, what's canon. This was determined by a group of people.
Exactly.
So
And were they decided upon by they didn't know the validity of the authors? Because that would be kind of ironic, because honestly, we don't even know who wrote any of the books in the first place, for sure.
I don't know if that's actually known. There's multiple theories. The control is one of them. Just simply deducing or concising everything down.
Yeah, and control of the knowledge.
Yeah, it would be a fair. If I think it'd be a fair assumption to assume that they were just doing it to simplify it and make it into one holdable book, because at the time it was all, scrolls and crap.
Right.
So anyway, the point of the matter is, so if you say you're a Christian and you believe in Jesus and the teachings of Jesus, then you're also basically going to have to say that you believe in all of his teachings, which is what it says in there, and you have to believe in also the non-canon stuff. I mean, you can't just say this is canon, so I'm going to believe in that. And furthermore, if you believe in all the irrelevant to whether or not you believe in canon or non-canon, both are contrary to each other. So how do you hold contradictory beliefs? You can't. As I was talking about a second ago. You can't believe in that, two things that are both contradictory as being equally true.
Right, and there are a lot of contradictions in the Bible. Not just New Testament, but Old Testament and all the way around.
Yeah, and so if you go into the non-canon texts, you will find so many contradictions amongst themselves and also amongst the current quote canon Bible. And ultimately, if you claim you're a Christian, you cannot do so honestly unless you claim that you hold contradictory beliefs. You believe in every contradiction equally and both sides of it equally. And if you make that claim, then you are actually being dishonest.
So let's jump into that a little bit more. Why can't a person have contradictory beliefs?
The reason that people cannot hold contradictory beliefs, beyond the fact that would contradict the rules of logic everywhere established by every thinker and philosopher ever. The actual word belief, the definition of that word in of itself, contradicts the probability that one could hold contradictory beliefs. And back to what I had read earlier, I said it says a feeling of, just with the first one, a feeling of being sure that someone or something exists or that something is true. So if you assumed that there was a floating teacup flying around the earth, okay, if you chose to believe that there really was one, by that definition, you cannot also, with the same equality, believe that it isn't. That wouldn't be taking a stance. That would be fence sitting.
Yeah.
At best. That's like speaking optimistically. So,
Okay.
because taking a belief is actually taking a stance on something. So, like, if you took a stance on let's say gay marriage and you were against it, you can't also be for it.
Right.
You could though believe that it's right and then make an argument against it, but that would be being dishonest.
Yeah. So it pretty much is a simple answer that you can't believe in two things at the same time. So then also, while we're on it, a lot of people would say, well, why isn't it just the canon books that actually matter?
Well, the canonical books, and neither the canonical books or the non-canonical really matter any more than the other. As in, whenever you establish that the canon versions were created or were determined by a specific person, like, let alone a person that killed a bunch of people in the name of that religion, which is something most Christians are against nowadays. You know, when you establish that this person did that, or that this one guy amongst a council of other people, or council amongst a PlayStation, had determined what people believe today. Like, do you really, like, I mean, how many people would feel comfortable knowing that the beliefs they hold to were determined by a murderer?
Yeah.
Let alone, minus that, just another person.
Yeah.
You know, so in my mind, I would say that the non-canon, it doesn't really matter any more than the canon. Now that's an opinion. Now, to go into the another aspect of that, to say this, those other gospels, how do you, as an individual, determine that whether or not that is actually valid?
Right.
Meaning, how do you
know whether to trust the ones that we have now more than the ones that the council didn't see fit to be in the main Bible?
or the other way around?
Right.
So, in my mind, if you forsake a non-canon gospel because it's not in the Bible, that gospel could be true. Like, it actually could have been something that had actually, to fit your belief, I should say, that could be true to your belief, that could actually should have been canon.
So say that you have a 15-year-old and he claims that he was inspired by God to write a new gospel and that it is part of the New Testament. So to remain being a Christian, do you have to believe what that says, even though that you know it most likely is just bogus?
How do you know?
Exactly.
See, that's the problem is belief. Belief. People confuse belief with knowledge, and they're not the same thing.
Right.
So you can't really know for fact whether or not that boy was telling the truth, and so you have to choose whether or not to believe him.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where human error comes into play. And this is where the issue lies with the Bible, is that we're going strictly off the definition of belief here. So if you choose to just ignore the non-canon aspects, let's say it was all written by a 15-year-old, all of it. Okay, if you chose to ignore all of that and only focus on what was written in the Bible, then what you're doing is, even then, even if you did that, you are still holding of dishonestly contradictory beliefs, because in the Bible there are two different accounts of Jesus.
Yeah.
So, and there's multiple different accounts on his stories. I mean, you can't just, and if you just cherry pick your way through it, if you just,
that's what everybody does.
Yeah, if you just say, I just believe in this one, I don't believe in that one, you're being dishonest.
Yeah, and that's what everyone does. Every single person I talk to.
Right, and you cannot be a Christian and be dishonest about the source and the core of your beliefs at the same time, because that is also contradicting.
I was actually going to ask you why all this even matters, and what you're hoping to gain from, if people say that they're not Christians, but I think you just kind of explained it. Should people not say that they're Christian even though they believe in the Bible and Jesus?
Well, the Bible as a whole doesn't really matter. If they just said, if they said that they believe, if they say they're Christian, they have to also believe in all the teachings of Jesus, by definition of the word Christian.
No matter where it came from.
No matter where it came from. And now, if you could disprove the validity of a source, but you
can't really when you're dealing with mystical stuff.
Right. And like what I was actually going to say was, if you could disprove the credibility of a source through knowledge, that still would not account for the belief aspect of the religion.
Is there any final thought or any way that you want to kind of put a bow on this?
Yeah, in my mind, and from this statement, claim, if you are to say you are a Christian, and to say so honestly, because the only way to truly be a Christian is to do so honestly, then you must accept and believe the source, or every source, every teaching of Jesus, all of it, and but even if you did that, even if you believed every single one of them, you still couldn't be Christian. And the reason you still couldn't be Christian is because you could not make that claim honestly without contradicting yourself, because the information that you say you believe all and its totality is also self-contradictory. So there is absolutely no way to actually say you are a Christian.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very interesting statement, and I appreciate you bringing it to the show. So for the next time, we're going to have you back on again, and we're going to do some lighter subjects, and we're also going to do some equally deep and maybe even philosophical subjects in the future. So Schyler, thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, so if you guys want to find us, again, I am at JeffJarman55 on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, not quite as much. And you can find us on the website, again, as I stated, www.jeffjarman.tk. Check out our friends on Twitter, the Hardcore Wrestling Podcast, at HCW Podcast, and www.hcwpodcast.tk. If you're into pro wrestling, you'll love that. So, yeah, thank you all for listening, and we will see you again next week at the Edge of the Earth.
Cheers.